Welcome back, bow hunters. This is Ron with Stay Sharp Guide. In this video, we're going to be talking about a new sharpener that we're bringing to market. And typically, when we decide to bring a new sharpener to market, it's based on customer demand. We get enough emails and enough phone calls to us asking, "Hey, do you have a sharpener for?" They mention the head. If we get that enough, we will investigate and see if we can come up with a sharpening solution. So this sharpener is for this head. Now this is the original, the smaller version, and then they've got an XL version. And we had gotten enough requests to come up with a sharpener for 4-blade, 1-piece, monolithic, out of a single piece of metal. And they have a small, they have a large. It won't matter if it's vented or unvented. So we wanted to come up with a method of sharpening that head. So let's look at what we've got here. This is the new F4 version 2.0. It will come with the diamond base holder. It will come with 2 of the 400 grit diamond plates, 2 800, 2 1200, 2 2000, and the broadhead holder. So let's take a look at this. Here is our base, which will hold the diamonds at the correct angle. So I'll pop in a 400 grit on this side and a 400 grit on this side. That provides us with the correct width, because as you can see, these heads are not sharpened all the way to the tip. There is a unsharpened portion for the tip. This provides us with the correct width to match that angle, and it is at the correct angle to sharpen that head. And as I said, let's get some focus here, there we go. As I said, it comes with a broadhead holder. This is the broadhead holder, and you will slip your broadhead into this slot. So the blade will go into the slot, the ferrule will go into the hole, you will push it down into position. Now this is meant to protect your fingers, so you can't really get cut on it. While you're sharpening, you will pinch it from both sides. That will keep your fingers safe. It also reduces fatigue versus trying to pinch some tiny little piece of metal. And we've got some grips on the side here and on the front. It's got a texture to it, so you'll find a comfortable way to hold it. That is how the setup will look. But for safety's sake, let's stop and talk about getting the head out. If you were to put your finger directly over this slot and lift up, you will be dragging a sharpened blade right through the center of your finger, cutting yourself. Don't do that. Grab the blade here, grab it back here, and slide the head out. If you try to slide it straight out with your finger over that slot and you come out, this blade is going to cut right through your fingers. Safety warning. Do not do that. So again, put the blade in. You can sharpen these 2 edges. Give it a full turn, because you're going to be sharpening the other side of that same set of blades. So we're focusing on this blade and this blade. We'll do 2 at a time. We'll create a burr. We'll break it off, create another burr. And then when we get these 2 blades sharpened, we'll tackle these 2 blades. But please, by all means, do not put your finger over the slot and lift out. You will cut yourself. The same is true for the smaller version. slide it in, it tucks back in a little bit further. The same thing, if you try to lift this up and out through that slot with your finger there, you are going to cut yourself. So again, it works for both the small and the large. So this is a brand new head. I bought a pack online, and we're going to look at this on the sharpness tester and under the microscope to get a baseline for what it comes, how sharp it comes from the factory. So let's look at the sharpness under the microscope first. So now you've seen the edge under the microscope. Let's look at it on the certified sharpness tester. Sharpness is a, out-of-the-box sharpness anyway, is a snapshot in time. As soon as you practice with the head or take an animal, you're going to own sharpening. So let's look at it out of the box and see what we get. .678, and I will show you a scale so you can appreciate how that compares to other sharp edges. Now let's go on to the act of sharpening this head to see if we can improve this edge. Regardless of what the score was out of the box, you will own sharpening this head every time you pass it through an animal and into the dirt. You've got some work cut out for you, and we're going to talk about sharpening with not only 4 grits of diamond, 400, 800, 1200, and 2000, but we're also going to go on to being able to buff it with buffing compound. So I will get everything set up and I will be right back. As we would do with any broadhead, we will want to start by coloring it up with Sharpie marker so we can understand the wear that we're getting. Now the blades, at least for these two, are colored up. We're going to be starting with 400 grit. The holder holds each diamond hone in place. Drop it in there, and you can switch. In this case, you would always run 2 of the same, right? 400 and 400. We've got our head in the holder and the blade colored up. We'll drop it in there. Now, you can try to run it away from yourself. You can try to run it side by side. It's entirely up to you. You're going to get a feel for what works best for you. I've found that I kind of like to do it side by side, or side to side here. You're going to start out with very light pressure, right? If you push down hard, you're going to find yourself struggling. 400 grit is a very coarse, rough grit, and we're going to keep going on 400 grit until we've established a burr. And once we've established the burr, I'll come back and we will talk about the burr and burr breaking and flipping it over and sharpening the other side of this head. Alright, so now we've done one side with the 400 grit. Remember what I said about taking the blade out, grab it on the sides. And let's check for a burr. So we still haven't touched this side, the Sharpie marker is there. The burr is the folded bit of metal that comes over the other side. So you can see how this paper is flexing as I've caught on the burr. It may be hard to see, but there is a micro burr, and this is rather soft metal. But when you've achieved a burr on one side, so we've sharpened this side and we've achieved a burr, now the goal is to flip it 180, put it back into the holder, and now we're going to break off the burr and sharpen the other side until we get a 400 grit burr. Once we've done that, we'll go to 800, 1200, 2000. So we'll create a burr, flip it over 180, break off the burr, create a burr. That's your signal that you're done with that stone. So I'm going to continue on to 400, and then we will come back through the process and talk a little bit more. Alright, so now we've done the second side with 400 grit. We can take the head out. We're going to go back to the other side, so 180-degree flip. We're going to put the head back in the holder, and then we're going to switch to 800. So as you've seen, the stones are considerably wider than the head, so you have the ability to then flip them around if you like, just to make sure that the wear is even. You don't just wear off one side of the stone, so the stones can be placed both ways. So now that we've got 400 grit done, we will switch to 800. Process is the same. Drop the diamonds in, and again, light pressure. If you think you're going to get done quicker by pushing down harder, you're going to only catch and stab the broadhead on the grit. It never works out that way. Light pressure is always the best solution. You don't wear out your diamond plates as fast, and with this soft metal you will have a much keener edge and a better burr with light pressure. You're just floating it over the top. So I'm going to keep going with 800. When I get a burr on one side, I'll check it, flip it over, and sharpen the other side. Okay, we have just completed 800 grit. We'll set those aside. We're going to take the head out, flip it 180 degrees, because the first act is to break off the burr with 1200 grit plates. I'll keep going with 1200 grit, and I will come back when we reach 2000. Now that I've achieved a second burr here at 1200 grit, for the last two grits, what I want to do is I want to create burrs, break off burrs, create burrs, break off burrs. It's like a paper clip. You can only bend it back and forth so many times before it comes off, and you want to make sure you got rid of all of that burr. And this is especially true at 12 and 2000 grit. So flip it over, do a few strokes, flip it over, do a few strokes. You want to really make sure there is no presence of the burr left. Alright, now that we've got our 1200 grit done, we are going to take out both 1200 grit plates and bring in 2000. the process is the same. We'll get 2 burrs, then we'll do some alternating burr removal strokes before we go on to buffing. Now that I've achieved 2 burrs with 2000 grit, we're going to do just like we did with 1200. We're going to be doing some alternating burr removal strokes. We want to make sure we've got rid of 100% of that burr. So we'll do a few strokes on one side, take it over, do a few strokes on the other. Again, we want to make sure all of that burr is gone. If there is any burr left, it will show up under the microscope and it will give us a bad or a dull seeming score on the sharpness tester. And we want to make sure that all of that burr is gone before we move on to buffing, where we're really going to put a mirror's edge on the head, because buffing is a really minor material removal step. Alright, now I can tell right now that that burr is gone. So now let's talk about buffing next. You're probably wondering how it is we can buff with only 4 diamond grits. Well, I'll show you how. I'm going to clean the diamonds, and then this is going to be your buffing surface right here. Now you're going to lay that tape right on the edge so it comes all the way to the edge. We're going to smooth it out, press it down on the sides. We'll do that again with the other diamond. And I'm using the 2000 grit plate for this. It's the smoothest. And we've got the diamond surface nicely protected. And now we just need buffing compound. And we're going to coat up the tape with buffing compound. And this keeps the buffing compound off the diamond plate. So now you can see I've got buffing compound on there. And with buffing compound, you only want to do a reverse stroke. Do not push into the tape or into the buffing compound. You will cut the tape, you will scrape off the buffing compound. Reverse strokes only, and as you can see, it's already starting to get black. Right? So we aren't removing a lot of material with buffing, but what we are doing is we're polishing that edge. There is a fine powdered abrasive that is suspended in that wax buffing compound. The wax in and of itself does nothing. It's the abrasive that is suspended in it that sharpens and polishes the edge. And you cannot overdo this. You can do this to your heart's content. See how black that's getting? I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to take the head out. I'm going to flip it 180. And I'm going to buff the other side. So we made a very small buffing compound burr. You would not be able to detect that with paper. So we'll just kind of keep an even stroke count. So we'll strop one side on the tape, and then we'll flip it over and do it again. And we'll keep going back and forth and chasing that micro burr away until it is 100% gone. You want no burr left on the blade. That will always make it seem dull. So I will keep buffing or stropping. Both words are fine. And then we will look at it under the microscope, and we will look at it on a sharpness tester, just like we started. So one thing I should mention is that you can also use blue painter's tape. It doesn't have to be the standard packaging tape. When you're done, simply peel it off. You do not want to get buffing compound on your diamond plates. Do not make the mistake of getting buffing compound on the diamond plates. Tape is cheap. You can keep adding new pieces. Don't try to reposition an old piece of tape. Put a new piece on. As you go through your heads, you'll find that you'll probably go through several pieces of tape. So I'm going to clean this up. There will be some buffing compound residue we do not want to see under the microscope. So I will clean this up and we will look at it next. You saw the edge before and after sharpening, so you can appreciate how the edge looks after going through all those steps. But let's see what we get for a score now that we've sharpened it. $139. That is considerably sharper than what we had, and I don't know if you can see it here. So down here by my thumb, that's the factory edge, and that's the edge we produced. That's the factory edge. That's the edge we produced. So it's a much smoother, and certainly with a score of 139, a much sharper edge. We haven't changed where the fade in comes from the tip. That remains the same. Now you will want to oil this head. This is carbon steel, so it will rust. And I suggest it'll rust probably pretty easily. So make sure to oil up all the surfaces, not just the edge that you have sharpened, but oil all of it. So there you have it. That is the new F4 version 2.0. Again, you're going to get 2,000, 800, 1,200, 400. So you're going to get multiple pieces of diamonds to do your honing. You will get the broadhead holder to protect your fingers, make life a little bit safer for you. You will be getting buffing compound. The only thing I suggest is getting some tape, and this is just a standard roll. I didn't do anything special to this. This masking tape or painter's tape is what you would buff on. Don't try to use duct tape. It'll leave a sticky goo on there. Don't use electrical tape. This and or painter's tape is all you will need, and you can produce an awesome edge with this head. Thanks for watching.